Welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're going back in the day with a South Sydney legend. He sported one of the great moustaches of the 80s. It's the one and only Wayne Chisholm. How are you, man?
I'm really well, Dave. How you going, buddy?
Oh, mate, I'm fantastic. So cool to have you on the show and get another legend on the podcast, mate. As I said, you had one of the great moustaches of the 80s. I see you've ditched it these days.
Oh, mate, I think that had to be left in the 80s, I think, that one, mate.
There's a few guys rocking some moustaches and mullets these
Oh,
days. Bring back the 80s, I say.
mate, that was the look.
Mate, I was born in '84, so I'm 40 this year, mate. I could not get away with the moustache and mullet. I think my wife would have me guts regardless if
Well,
I did
I'm
that.
glad we missed the mullets era, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just not into the mullets.
No, no, Ryan Panhausen's doing his best to bring it back. I think he suits it actually. Anyway, man, enough about hairstyles. What have you been up to in recent times, mate? What you doing with yourself?
Oh, recently I'm a supervisor for a building company and just ticking over like everyone, just doing what you got to do and living on the Gold Coast here. So it's always hot like it is right
Yeah.
now. But no, pretty kicked back, honestly, to be honest. Nicely settled here in Currumbin, so it's a nice spot to live.
Yeah, man. Me and the missus came over this year, actually in June. We actually went, no, through Currumbin. We stayed on Surfers Paradise, and that was hot then.
Yeah. It does. It gets pretty warm.
Yeah, man. Good old Australia, mate. So let's rewind the clock, my man. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. Wayne Chisholm, where'd you grow up, and what was life like for you as a young fella?
All right. Had two brothers that played footy and a father that played footy for North Sydney. So we were always bound to be playing footy as juniors. And we started in the Harbour area, played all my junior footy with Harbour United, which was a team that was not far from where we lived, which was nice and handy. You know, you'd walk home from school and you'd walk back down again with a ball under your arm to kick around. So yeah, all through the juniors was Harbour United, and look, we were really lucky back then. We had some fantastic coaches, you know, from the Freddie Jones to Graham Eady, and we just had John Harvey. We just had so many good mentors back in the day that
Yeah,
just kept everyone on the straight and narrow. And we were lucky we had a really good side. You know, we had Dave Hoskings, the Mule, as one of our
yeah,
front rowers, Phil Daly, and a couple other guys that have progressed as well. And sort of went through all those junior eras. Usually with the side that were either premiers or runners up or something. We had a really good side, so
nice.
that was sort of the main sort of stepping stones, and sort of a little bit. I listened to you and Tubes the other day, and similar
Yeah,
sort of setup. As Tubes, I was a Manly junior, and you go through all that sort of Jersey Flegg and Harold Matthews. You go all through those junior sort of rep teams and stuff, and you never really sort of look too far into the future when you're that age. You just live in the moment, I suppose. But you get your opportunities and you play those rep games, and it's all a bit of fun. And then it was a bit of a shock. I got a phone call from Bobby Fulton. My brother Rick was playing for Manly at the time,
yeah,
and Bozo rang me and he said, I want you to come down and start playing touch footy. They had like a touch footy comp during the week, you know what I mean? Never really
yeah.
thought that much of it. I said, yeah, right, I'll come down. Didn't even think about grade or anything. Just thinking about playing touch. So we used to play this midweek comp, and I turned up and sort of looked around. Everyone standing in front of me were first grade or reserve grade footy players, and I thought, this is
Wow.
strange company for me. But yes, I played touch footy, and then next thing Bozo says, I want you to come down and sign on with Manly and to see how things go from there. And I was sort of like a 5'8" lock sort of player back then, and
Okay.
played that 83 was when I got graded, and I think my first game of grade was down at Seaford, which is down at Canberra, and Johnny Gibbs was my halfback. I was 5'8".
Yeah.
Just had all these star internationals as a forward pack, Goldie Walker and all these guys in just couldn't believe how many first grade players were in and internationals in playing reserve grade. But So that was a lot of fun in 83.
Yeah.
Sort of learned a lot playing with those guys. And then at the end of 83, that was my first year in grade, I got the opportunity through a bloke called Taz Batiri that was playing with Canterbury. Taz was well known about overseas, playing in Europe and whatnot. And at the time, Ronnie Willie was coach at South. And I always knew Ron because his son I went to school with and stuff. And he said, yeah, ever thought about playing over in France? And I went, not really, but I wouldn't mind going. And he says, well, I'll get you started if you want to go. And I went, no, this was the end of the 83 season.
Okay.
And, so next thing, there's 50 Aussies of us, 2 to each European club to play a season over in France. That was the end of 83. So went over and played with Lesignan in the south of France for a season, or not quite a season because we had to be back because I was under contract for Manly for 84.
Okay.
So I went to France, had a fantastic time over there. Came back pre-season with Manly, 84. That was coming off 83. We played in the grand final for reserve grade against South, funny enough.
Okay.
Against Tugger and all the boys, and they beat us. South won the grand final in 83, but that was just before we went to France. And then when France finished, came back, played with Manly again. We made the semis, got knocked off. First grade, I think, 83, 84, played Parramatta in the grand final. Parramatta won both. And then, pretty much 84 was a sort of an up and down year for Manly. I was playing second row, playing lock, playing 5'8", wherever they could sort of fit you in.
Yeah.
And Manly was just a star-studded first grade and reserve grade side. There was a lot of internationals and stuff there. Anyway, towards the end of 84 comes up, and me and the mule, Big Dave Hosking, we were going for a run, and we had a run around Harwood. We ended up coming back to the pub where our cars were parked, and sit down the front with Ron and Willie.
Yeah.
And I knew Ron. I said, how are you, mate? What's going on? He said, listen, because the season had finished. And he said, I've just lost Mark Ellison to Cronulla. A couple of other players I think might have retired. Anyway, he says, I want you to come over and play with South. I went, really? Like the semis of 84, South and Manly were at loggerheads. There was big punch-ups and all sorts of things going on. So it was quite strange to hear that from Ronnie. Anyway, come over and play. And I went to South in 85, signed there for a couple of years and stayed there sort of from 85 through to 91. And, it was a great time there. It really was. It was a club that was just, I don't know, you stepped into this aura of, they just love the history of the joint. You know what I mean? Everyone plays a part in it. And we were a young bunch in that 89, or even before that, come right back to 85 with Ron Willie. That was his last year there. That was a bit of a struggle season. We didn't go too well, but then George Piggins came in the year after, and so did Gus Gould. Gus Gould came in. And Gus sort of managed that side. He knew we were all a bunch of young guys. Everyone was keen, but he could tell everyone was pretty close, you know what I mean? So what he did, he just turned that side into a side that was a competitive side then, and then sort of that build momentum. He moved on to Canterbury, but our side sort of grew then, and we end up with a great bunch of front rowers: Ian Roberts, Mario Fennick, and Les Davidson. You'd have those three any day of the week.
Being forward, you love the contact of the game and being in the forward pack with your mates in the front row and taking on the opposition. Was that something you really enjoyed?
We absolutely loved it. Like that first year at South, I think my first game was a charity shield match against St George. They have one every year.
They do.
And I remember Tugger saying to me, he said these are one of the hardest games of the year. I said, really? He said, mate, every year. First game's always against St George, charity shield, but it could be on. And I went, this is nice. Walked straight up Craig Young, Rod Reddy, all these old legends of St George. They had a fantastic pack. And sure enough, it was on. You know what I mean? It was hard, but they were just so competitive. But the actual group of the of South, they just stick together. They're all good mates, and I think that's what got us through those early years, because everyone just stuck together, and we were just competitive. We just wanted to compete.
Yeah.
And like the front row, as I've already mentioned, the back row, we had a solid back row, and we had some speed as well. Once Blakey come across in I think it was 97 or something, after he the journeyman had been around a couple of different clubs. I got from Manly, played with you guys. But Blakey's a good mate of mine. I grew up with Blakey, and like Tugger used to say, it was like having a Ferrari in the garage.
Phil Blake's one of my favourite players of all time, especially because being a Warriors fan from back in the day, like when he was in the 95 Warriors, scored the first ever Warriors try, and it was a cracking try as well. And just an elite player. Like what he used to do back at Manly in the early 80s, that chip over the top regather. What a freak, eh? Just pure
He
speed.
was, mate. He was, and the good part about playing with him was you couldn't tell when it was going to explode. You just didn't know when it was going to happen. It would just go bang, and you go, wow. You know, he definitely was something special. But we had a few good players like that in our side. You know, even our a little bit wider at the time, Paulie Roberts. You know, he was a fantastic competitor as well. Look, it was just a good side, but there was some good sides around at the same time. You know what I mean? We were in that sort of 88, 89. You know, you had a crack. There was a Canterbury side that was always competitive against us. You know, they were always hard to beat. And then you had Balmain was a crack side too, and Canberra.
Absolutely.
You know, there was a few sides that you knew you were up for a hard day when you were up against them all the time.
Oh, especially back in those late 80s, Balmain they had the most ridiculous forward pack, just tough as teak, block a roach.
They were, and you knew you were in. You knew what you were in for. When you turned up there, it didn't matter where you played them. You know, Blocker and all the boys. That was always going to be a hard battle. But our boys would never. We wouldn't lay down for anyone. But we were always going to, try our best.
Yeah, man. I think they had Steve Edmund. I think Gary Freeman told me that there was a halfback who was annoying him against the opposition they were playing. He said, "If you do that to me again," he did something. He roughed him up on the ground. So he said, "Do that again, and I'll knock you out." And the halfback did it again. He stood up and knocked him out, and he got sent off. That was Steve.
There was. Look, I love that time of footy because for an example, a funny thing, Bundy or someone, even that day where he gave Kelly that little uppercut and stuff. You have someone like Greg Hartley as a referee, and he'd say, "Tit for tat, Kel, you deserved it," and the game would go on. You know what I mean? The game would go on, and that was the good part of back then. It's not like that anymore, obviously.
No. Well, did you ever get any scuffles yourself? With any of the players? Was there anyone you picked up at all?
Mate, I was no good at it, so I tried to keep away from it. But playing in that pack, you always knew you were in for something because our guys just wouldn't lay down for anyone. They never put the white flag up. They were a staunch bunch of guys, and it was great to be a part of.
Awesome, man. So just going back to your official debut for the Bunnies, it was against the old enemy, the Sydney Roosters. That's a great rivalry there. They had Kiwis, Olsen Filipina, Hugh McGahn, and Dean Bell. And they had John Ferguson, Kevin Hastings, like this ridiculous side. You actually got the win though, so that was great. You kicked off your Bunnies career with a great win.
And that day, running out on the sports ground there, with their sports grounds no longer down there, but running out and looking around, I went, wow. I'm in pretty good company here. But that Hugh McGahn and them, they were all great players, mate. They really were. Olsen Filipina, when he was playing with Norse and stuff, I used to pull my head out of the scrum and look and think, hey, here we go. He's going to run off, first runner off the scrum is going to be Olsen Filipina. 10 metres off the line, you're thinking you're always going to be hard up. But no, they were some good players, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Man, but you got the win. So what's it like, do you remember, back to your very first grade game for Manly, do you remember just that first week? Did you sleep at all? Were you just excited? Were you one of those players who got nervous and got sick or anything?
Excited, yes. But because you do much training leading up to things and stuff, it's you sort of, by the time the day comes, the actual game comes, you're just happy to be out there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like I said, when I ran out that first time at Canberra, and I ran out and looked around, and there were so many people and stuff there. All I could do was smile. I just thought, wow, you know, it's an exciting feeling, you know. But as the grind moves on, you got to put a lot of work into it. There's a lot of training goes into it, and but it's definitely worthwhile. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So speaking of training, what were you like as a trainer, and sort of what position did you play coming through? Because I noticed you played a bit of lock, you played a bit of second row. Sometimes you came
Yeah.
off the bench. So what was it for you? What was your favourite, and what was your whole training regime like as a young fella?
Back in those days, your training routine was you had your 3 days a week that you teamed up at when you went over the bridge to South and train with the boys over there. But to be honest, if you didn't put in those 2 other days doing something, either swimming, weights, or something, even though it was a 5 day training event, we were still working. We were still tradies and working at the time. So you just had to make it work. I was lucky. Yep. I was with Telecom back in the early days, and the head honcho there actually loved Manly at the time.
Okay.
I used to just ring him and say, mate, it's 2:00. I've got to hit the bridge as quick as I can. And bang, I was gone. But, look, yeah, you knew the guys that put in, the guys that put in a little bit extra. You could just tell they were always that little bit fitter, stronger. And if you had to be like that, you had to train hard. And South, I got to nominate a bloke called Bobby Jimman. He's actually Tugger's lovely wife Debbie's dad. Okay. He was our trainer there, and he used to just absolutely flog us at Centennial Park, run up all the hills, carrying each other, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, that was the day where you were doing 5-10K runs on the road and all such. So they don't do it these days because everyone's worried about their joints and whatnot. But it was hard. It was hard training back then, and if you didn't put in and you didn't keep up, you were exposed. Everyone just looked at when we haven't been training much, you know. But South used to train hard, definitely, and I think that sort of showed in those years where we all played well because we had a fit unit. You know what I mean? You had to put in.
So when I think, because I was going to ask you at the start, going back to your childhood for a moment, when you first started playing rugby league, what was it about the game that got you excited about rugby league? What made you want to play? And like to put in all that training, put in all the hard work, sacrifice your joints, your bodies, your shoulders, your head, especially back in your era. What was it about the game? And even right through your career that just made you want to keep coming back and playing?
I unfortunately was the youngest of the three brothers. So I was sort of like get in line and follow your brothers. But I think it was just a mateship at the time. You know, you got your mates that you go to school with, and you're happy to be knocking around with them. And I was lucky. I had a fantastic group of friends that we most of them played footy. And if I wasn't playing footy, I'd be surfing. So there was two groups to me. But the footy group, I was lucky. I carried a lot of them right through to grade. But in the early years, it was just about the fun. You know, I used to love just playing. And that was in the day where you'd go out and play in the mud, you know, and your jumper, and you were just completely black, you know what I mean? And in the Harbour Juniors, we were a white jersey with a red V. And some days you'd honestly come off, and there's photos of me, old ones, and you just got mud all over you. And people that's just the way it was, you know what I mean? Whack a towel around you, get in the car, back home, have a shower. But it was more just, I think, the fun of it and the mateship. And if you're not doing it for that reasons when you're young, something's wrong. You know, you got to enjoy it. You got to enjoy it. Man. The money thing and stuff really shouldn't come into it. You know, you play because you love the game. You play because you're with a group of guys that you've been training hard together. You associate with them. You mingle with them. All this sort of stuff. So you get very close with guys, and that bond that you build comes through onto the field because you look left, you look right, you know, and I might look that way and there might be Dave Boyle, I might look that way and there'll be Mickey Andrews, and I know I'm covered. Yeah. So if I do my job in the middle, I know they'll do their job, and that's sort of how it was, you know, that was the sort of bond before you run out on that field and everyone sort of looks at each other at last minute before you run on.
Let's go, boys.
You can see it in their eyes. It's like, let's get amongst it, and I've got your back type of thing. So they were great days. A lot of fun.
Mate, they're fantastic. So good. And that's the era where you played for your jersey, you played for your club. It wasn't about the money, like you said, and you just wanted to do well for your club because it was about that. It was about the colours on your jersey, your pride.
And back in the early days, most people sort of played where they grew up.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? So for us, it was a natural progression playing with Manly, even though I've obviously migrated to South, but I think that was just a sign of the times. Yes. But most people always, as they grow up, they look at where they are and go, geez, I wish I was playing with Manly, or if they were a North Sydney boy, I wish I was playing for North Sydney or whatever. But it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun, and the mateship's the thing, especially in those those older teens and early 20s. That's you love being with your mates and all that sort of stuff, and that bond is what it's all about.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Right, so let's get back to 1985. The season came to a close. The Bunnies missed out on the finals, but not by much. But do you recall how you felt after your first full year playing first grade? You've had a couple of cracks at with Manly, but didn't quite get a taste of that full run at first grade. Where this time you've had a full go. Your body's probably a bit more beaten up than normal. How did it feel?
No, I sort of realised that at the end of '85 that, and I sort of. I think I played probably 20-odd games or something in first grade that year. And I think coming into Christmas, I sort of realised, you've got to step your training up another level, because you're in this environment of guys that you can tell they're doing sprint training, they're doing whatever they could do, and you had to come to the next level. You know what I mean? So I think it was more just the realisation of how much extra you really needed to put in if you wanted to be a part of it, if you wanted to. And at South, you had Tony Rampley, and you had these guys that just oozed enthusiasm. You could just see it coming out of their eyes. You know what I mean? And if you didn't put in, you knew yourself that you were behind the eight ball. But there was some characters there, mate, and just a great club to be a part of, to be honest. And then you had Georgie Piggins there, steering the ship. And George is a great man, lovely bloke.
Hell yes. So the following year, you went. It was a great year for the Rabbitohs. You signed, as I said, Ian Roberts, Phil Gould. You mentioned to an already wonderful pack. South finished second on the ladder, and in round 18 against Penrith, you crossed over for your first try. So do you remember the try? And I'm sure you probably do. And how good was it to score your first one, mate?
You can't help it, but you got to be. You just sort of think about it and you go, wow. It's nice to get over the line at last. But I was never a prolific try scorer, that's for sure. But I like to think that the group, you assist and you get the side where it needs to be. But it was pretty exciting getting a touchdown there at some stage. It was always fun.
Yeah, man. Did they have any rituals back in your day like they do now, where you do the nudie run at the end of the year if there's no tries scored?
No, thank God.
Oh, thank God.
No, but I know they do that now, and no, thank God back then it didn't happen. But at the end of '85, South re-signed me again, and it was just good to move into a new era, because at the start of '86, when Phil Gould came, and everyone knew who Phil Gould was. You know what I mean? Yeah. Phil had been around for a while. But honestly, it was like stepping into a TAFE theory room, and this guy just got up and started talking, and everyone went, "Wow, this guy had direction and vision way before anyone else did." Right. And he was saying, like, if we take two this way and come back one, there's going to be a big hole there, and he'd read the game so well. We'd be just following his directions around the park. So by the end of '86, having Gus there for the season, even though us back rowers had to do a bit of tackling for him because Gus was too busy pointing the finger, but that was okay. We didn't mind that.
He's got the footboard on the field.
But it was a great experience, because what it did, for Tugger, for Blakey, for everyone, it made everyone just open the vision a bit. You know what I mean? Take the covers off and just see the game for a bit wider for what it was, which helped us in 87, 88, and to progress in 89. It was good having Gus there. I think it gave everyone a little bit more experience, and we probably grew up as footballers, I suppose, with Gus being there. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, finishing up second on the ladder. You go into the finals. Yeah, took on the Canterbury Bulldogs, and they had Steve Mortimer, Terry Lamb, Peter Tuggs, Paul Angmack, Steve Bugden, like a hell of a team. I think you came off the bench in your first finals match for South against the Bulldogs, 24,000 people. You're pinching yourself running out getting into that game.
It was pretty cool. It really was. You know what I mean? Like run out on any stadium full packed, and you hear that roar happen. And South really had a contingency of supporters that they really let you know that they were there. So it was pretty exciting to be a part of it all. It was great. It really was.
It was only 4-0 at half time. Bunnies were still in the game, but do you remember when you got on the field? And it's quite hard. Like Jeff Turvey alluded to the fact, it's quite hard to come on off the bench because you don't know the feel of the game straight away. You got to make an impact and all of that. So, do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I did, and I think George and they used to say, just when you get on try and either get the first hit on or your first hit up with the ball, and that just gets you into the game. And he was right. As soon as you have your first hit or your first tackle, you're in the game then. But you come on cold, so sometimes it takes a bit to get up to speed with everyone else, especially if they're everyone's been on for 20 minutes or whatever. But it's hard, but I mean you just got to hit the ground running, I suppose.
Yeah, man, that's right. And unfortunately, you guys went down, but you had a second bite at the cherry. You had to take on Balmain, who were really finding their feet in the competition. So do you have memories about that particular match? Because it was sudden death, this is it, do or die. You win, you go through to the semi, you lose, season's over. Like
it's a gut-wrenching feeling, mate, to even getting close to that back end of the game, and you know that you're gone, and you just think, you're so close, you're that game off making the grand final. Gut-wrenching is the word. It's a horrible feeling. And because you're so close, but if the luck went our way a little bit that day, we might have been a chance, but we probably beaten by a good side.
Yes.
But anyway, that's life. We moved on.
It is indeed. So 1987. Let's move on to there. Another top 5 finish for the Bunnies. You basically played every match in the season. Phil Blake was there, giving you guys all that X factor. The Ferrari, as you said. Like you said, is it just incredible to be part of a side with superstars being injected into your team? Like, you're already great, but then to have,
No, but really, that year building on Gus being there the year before, I think it was a building year for us, and we started to really believe in the squad that we had. We started to believe that we can actually be a top 3 finish. And we did. So I wouldn't say that was a bad year. It was still a good year. And if you can finish in the top 3 any year or top 4, you've had a good year. But disappointing. But right at the crunch end of the season, it's always hard to lose those big ones.
It is. You went on to play the Tigers, I think, in the sudden death major prelim semi as your first assignment in '87. So I think you guys got the revenge this time. I think you went through like 15-12.
Yeah.
Remember that game?
Look, playing the Tigers always used to just be a complete arm wrestle. It didn't matter if it was semi-final footy or if it was a club game, you know what I mean? It was just, you had Mario that hated Elias. You got Bundy and them that are going, against Blocker, who were their test match teammates, Ciro and Block. Honestly, it was unbelievable to be a part of all that, because you just knew you're playing with top shelf guys, and that's your dream. You want to play those sort of games. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But again, we didn't get that semi. But anyway, that's life.
Yeah, I think you went on to play the Canberra Raiders the following round. I think they gave you guys an absolute.
Yeah,
I think it was like 40 something.
Well,
yeah, it was
that's a team I haven't even talked about. But honestly, the Bradley Clydes and the Mal Meningas, and like honestly, you could go through their side and then you look at it and go, wow, all these guys have Gary Belcher, everyone's played, for Australia, and they were just a young Laurie Daly, Ricky Stewart, all these young guys are coming through, and they were something special when they were young, So, but they got us good that day.
They absolutely did. they had the luxury of having Glenn Lazarus on the bench.
Oh, what a player!
Ridiculous.
What a player! Every team needs one of him.
I know. It's so good. 1988, South came back down to earth, missed the playoffs, but 1989, something special happened. South Sydney finished top of the ladder, giving yourselves the perfect opportunity to win the premiership. Mate, how awesome was that 89 regular season? Finishing 4 points clear of the next side.
Yeah, 89 was a special year. We got the season off with a cracker. I think we won 12 straight, which is a club record. We won 12 straight, and we're playing really well. A handful of us got to play in some of the City Origin games and stuff, which was a good little celebration for the start of the year. But we knew the back end was always going to be the tough end. Not many sides win that many games and just keep going all the way through. But there was a lot of emerging stars in that 89 side that were probably quiet achievers before that, but really rose. That our backline and stuff just excelled, and our forward pack. I think if we had a healthy Ian Roberts at the back end of the year, we should have got that game. But he was playing with a torn groin, and it was just a shame. But to be honest, we got pipped. I think playing Balmain in that major semi was the game that we should have won.
Yes, 40,000.
I think Harrigan pulled up a forward pass to Harrington in the corner, which if we score it, puts us in front, and I think we would have just rolled them then because we had them on the ropes. But didn't happen. You know what I mean? They rolled us, and that was just really disappointing, that one. But anyway, we backed up the following week to go to Green Machine again.
You did indeed, and this is the match didn't go your way, but there's a real personal highlight for yourself in this game. I watched the footage.
I fell over the line twice.
Oh, mate, they were great tries. I think the first one, you step inside Bradley Clyde, you carry him over the line, and you've got South back in the game because you guys were getting absolutely pumped in that first 10 minutes or so. Like they just had you guys run ragged, and all of a sudden you score this try, bit of momentum, and you're back in the game. Then you get the second one off. Well, I can only call an absolute disgrace of a scrum. Those scrums back in the day, they're ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, at the time, in that game, I still, even though we were under the pump, I thought there was a chance of us always coming back in that. Yeah. But mate, to their credit, they're a great side, and they went on to win it.
Yeah, mate. Pretty cool though. Like I know the season ended on a sour note, but you must look back at that season quite fondly. 2 tries and such a big. Like, what's that moment like when you dive over? You've just got your side back in the game. Like this is big stuff. Massive crowd goes crazy. All the South fans are up. Your teammates are rallying around you. That's got to feel good, man. It has to.
It is. You definitely you get pumped up, and you're just hoping for the best that everything's going to start going our way a little bit. But I don't know. We just in that whole semi-final series, a lot of luck didn't go our way. And I'm not going to make any excuses for it because we're probably beaten by 2 great sides. But it's just a shame because when you feel like you're getting on the front foot, bang! Harrigan used to pump us and bring us back down to earth, and what do you do? You try your best and just wait for something to happen, or try and make something happen. But it was a good feeling. Getting a couple of tries was always fun, but walking off the field at the end, I would have swapped those tries for a win every day of the week.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. And you can look back and go, well, we lost to the 2 teams who played possibly the greatest grand final of all time.
Yeah, 100%. And I sat there and watched it thinking, wow, I wish I was a part of that, you know what I mean? But probably just not good enough on the day. That's as simple as it is. You make your own luck, and those 2 sides, they knew how to do it.
Yeah, man.
That's for sure.
Mate, I've had Brent Todd, Bradley Clyde, and Gary Freeman all on the podcast, and they've all got their own sad stories from
Yeah,
final series, and in
yeah.
particular, poor old Gary Freeman, 2 years in a row just going down in the big one. He was pretty gutted. He was
Oh,
gutted.
that's for sure. And everyone's got a story to tell, and sometimes they're fruitful ones, and sometimes they're not. But
Yeah.
it was a great time. It was a great time in my life. That 89 was a fabulous year for the group. And look, we came back the year after. I think I did my knee, had a reconstruction done on my knee the next year, and we didn't have a great year. A few players started to drop off and leave the club and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I sort of moved on after that to Norse.
Yes.
I actually wasn't going to play, but I eventually signed with Norse just for one more year. And actually the year was after having a knee done the year before, the 92 year that I was at Norse, it was actually an enjoyable year. We had a really good group of guys, good coach, and we ended up going through and winning the reserve grade grand final that year. And then I hung the boots up in Sydney. That was enough for me.
Yeah.
But moving on from 92, I went up to Airlie Beach and coached Proserpine in the like bush team, which was a lot of fun. And then came back down to the Gold Coast where John Harvey was coaching the Seagulls at the time.
Yes.
Southport Tigers needed a captain coach for a couple of years. So I did a couple of years there before I hung the boots up for good. And that was me done in 95. Out.
Absolutely done.
But a lot of fun.
Before you were done, there's actually another bright light for you in 89 I wanted to bring up, which was you actually got picked for the City Origin side.
Oh, yeah.
You had your first rep.
That's usually picked about round 8 or 9, and we'd won 9 on the trot. So our side was going really well. Look, things like that are always exciting when you get nominated for something. It was a great thrill for me to get picked in that, but it was only the one, but it was nice to be a part of it.
You were there, mate. You were there. It was a pretty cool getting out there and being amongst players you wouldn't ordinarily get to play with.
Exactly. Being amongst the group, and the countryside was full of great players, and so was our city side. And that's a fond memory to look back on because I was a part of it. And look, and some people go through their whole career and never get a chance to represent something or be a part of something. But that was nice. It was nice.
Nice, man. And the funny thing about you said 1990 wasn't a great year. I think the Rabbitohs set a record at the time, going from minor premiers to wooden spooners in the space of one season. That's a tough year, man.
No one knew why. It just what happened. There was no really explanation for it, but it was just a poor year.
Yeah, like I think you only played the 2 games. I think the Rabbitohs only had the 2 wins for the whole season. That's crazy stuff. Yeah. So 1991, we have to bring up the big suspension. So 10-week suspension for Wayne Chisholm for tackling the referee. Now, what happened from your point of view? How did this all come about? And I'm sure it's a good story.
I got to say it with a smile on my face, but anyway, I know it's history and away we go. But we're playing at Sports Stadium against Newcastle, and I think we're about 25, 30 metres out from our line, and Newcastle had sort of half busted us, and I think someone popped the ball to Schulster, and Schulster was heading towards the post.
Yep.
And I came across to hit him, and Weeks, the ref, ran up in between us both, and he turned and he looked at me, and then he looked back and he pulled up, but then he went again. And honestly, by the time I'd left, I think this part of my right arm had come straight across, hit him straight across the top of the head. So
beautiful.
The game went on. Schulster scored. I got up. The ref got up. He awarded the try. It was about 12 o'clock the next day. I got a phone call and said, "You got to go to the judiciary."
Oh, my God.
I said, "Really?" I said, "I was talking to Weeks after the game and we didn't even mention it, you know what I mean?" But, it was like I killed someone. When I got to the judiciary, it was like, how could you do that? And I went, wow, like I was anyway. Did I seem? Did I seem probably right at the death? Yeah, I did, but
You're committed,
I
mate.
couldn't pull back. It was just the way it was.
As a player, who's been through something like that, and then you see stuff in the NRL now, like a player who, like, say, there was a good one last year. Jackson Hastings runs the ball right deep into the defensive line, and Felice Kafusi from the Dolphins, and he's a hitman. He
Yeah,
puts everything into tackling him. Hastings passes the ball a fraction of a second before Kafusi
yeah.
absolutely clobbers him, but he
But
can't pull out, but he gets suspended
yeah.
for 4 weeks. As a player
Look,
who's been through that, what are your thoughts on that?
no, look, you seriously, you can't react that quick sometimes. You know, by the time you've committed, your brain, you can't pull back on what happens sometimes. Sometimes you can see it if it's 3 seconds later. Well, obviously it's been a late shot, but some of it, I think, when they slow motion it down, because I remember when I was at the judiciary, they slow moed it down and went, "Look at that," and all you could see was me going bang. But I mean, the seconds leading up to that, or the split seconds leading up to that, footy's a fine line. It really is.
Yeah.
And now they don't want you touching the head at all. You know what I mean? So they're making it hard for guys, but it's the ref's call or Bunker's call or whoever's call. It's a bit ridiculous.
Even when you're not hitting the head, but you're just tackling around the body, but it's considered late because you've committed and then they pass the ball or kick the ball. Like it must be it's almost like they're overthinking the game. Like it's not like the player got injured, but like they're still.
Look, I'm all for them protecting the sevens and stuff because they're the guys you're trying to close down. You know what I mean? I get that, and rightly so. They should sort of protect them a bit, but I think there's a big difference between body hitting and hitting around the head. You're right, and I think if they're gonna pull that section out, maybe they can judge it with a third referee as well. But I don't know. That's the game. The game seems to be getting to me a little bit soft. But
a little bit.
So societies, everyone's doing the same thing. So I don't know where it's going to go, but hopefully they won't wreck the game too much.
Yeah, mate. Well, it's funny you should mention that. I saw a great video clip this morning of how kids used to be in the 70s and 80s, and there's like 3 people on a surfboard on top of a skateboard going down a hill, and doing jumps with BMXs and all that stuff, like just crazy stuff. Yeah. 4 people on a skateboard and all leaning off it, like those were the days.
100%. That was me going down to the beach, that's for sure. But no, it's not like that anymore, Dave. It's everyone's wrapped in cotton wool when it comes to footy and sport. But anyway, that's just the way it is.
We move on. So you said you went to the North Sydney Bears. So I'm quite curious to know how you ended up at North Sydney. How did that whole contract come about? And was it always the plan to leave South, or was it more of a see you later, Wayne, you got to go type of a situation?
No. It wasn't like that at all. I had a good relationship with Frankie Curry. Frankie Curry at South, we won an 86 under 23s grand final for South, which I was a part of, because I was one of the younger guys, so we fitted in the side. But no, got on well with Frank. No issues with him. But there was a lot of good young guys, Darren Maroon, and a lot of guys coming up through the system. That I get it. You know what I mean? Like you've been there for 7 years. Like it was time. It was time to move on. I wouldn't say it was a complete get out type of thing. It's sort of a mutual thing. We've got guys coming through, and I was sort of getting towards the end that I was probably after that, especially after the knee injury. It just took a long while for that to come 100% good. Even it never really came 100% good, but that was just a sign of the times. New guys coming through. The North Sydney connection was Steve Martin was a bloke I knew from Manly. Right. Steve Martin was heavily involved in the same area that I grew up in and stuff, so I knew him. And I just rang him and said, what's doing? And he said, actually, you'd be a good backup in case Fairley or someone got hurt or whatever. They already had a international, like a state
more, and
they had enough players there already. But he was really good. He said, mate, I'll take you on board for a year. And I said, a year will do me, mate, and then I'm out. But it was a really fun year. It really was a great year, apart from Steve Martin getting the bullet halfway through.
Yeah.
But it was a really fun year. The group, they were a great group of guys. They'd actually won quite a few premierships in the reserve grade before I even got there. So anyway, that was good to get a win that year and sort of just finish on a pleasing note. That it was good.
Yeah, man, nice way to go out with a premiership.
Yeah, it was good.
So yeah, man. So nice. So how did that premiership final go? Who did you play? And what was your score? I don't know much about it. I couldn't find much information on it.
On North Sydney, the grand final.
Yeah, the reserve grade final.
We played Penrith, and that Mark Guy was in that side for Penrith.
Really,
it was a really solid. Both packs were loaded. It was the following year, pretty much North Sydney's first grade side was the reserve grade side from the year before. Okay. But I can't remember the exact score. It was like 14-8 or something like that. It was fairly close, but we got them. But it was definitely an arm wrestle against Mark Geyer and the boys. They were all just mountain men, always big.
He's got guys. Crazy eyes, man.
Yeah. No, but he's a good man. He's a good man.
He is. Oh, brilliant stuff. So it was quite nice though for you to finish on a high, lifting a trophy in your final match, and so the New South Wales Rugby League.
And look, I didn't hang the boots up straight away. After the grand final, I think North sort of said to me, what's your intentions for next year? And at the time, I just went, look, not really sure. Let's talk about after Christmas. After Christmas came an opportunity. Peter Jackson, who was at North at the time, he said, "Listen," he said, "why don't you go north and have a nice relaxing time at Airlie Beach and coach the side up there?" And I went, "Gee, that sounds nice." I said, "Gee, that sounds nice." So I went to Airlie Beach and had a season up there, and that was great. That was very enjoyable. The pressure was off.
Yep.
Played a bit of rep stuff up there too, and got an award for the, how much I'd put into footy and all that sort of stuff. But it was just nice. It was just nice to have a season away. And then pretty much driving from Airlie Beach back down to Sydney, I called in at the Gold Coast here. And Johnny Harvey, who's a good mate of mine, said, "Look, I'm looking for a coach for the Southport Tigers. Do you want to coach?" And I said, "Oh, I don't want to play." And he said, "Oh, they want a captain coach." And I went, "Really? Can't we just coach?" So I ended up captain coaching him for the one season, and then I backed up and coached him for the second year without playing because I was done then. I was done. 24 years. I was happy to throw the boots by that stage. But it was great. And I never went back to Sydney. I stayed here and never went home.
Beautiful, mate. And you're still there having a good time, loving life by the looks of it.
Yeah. No, it's a lovely spot to wind your years out, mate. Sydney's a bit hectic for me at the moment, so it's nice and chilled here.
Beautiful, man. So when you look back at your career, what's one thing that stands out above the rest that you look back on and go, "Yeah, that was pretty cool"?
Actually, I thought of this the other day, and it's a funny thing actually, but I think might have been end of 86 or 87. South was sponsored by Smith's Crisp. Yes,
good old Smith's Crisp.
Smith's Crisp, right? So end of the season, we got told, "Boys, we're flying all of you to Papua New Guinea to play a trial game against PNG."
Awesome.
Everyone looked at each other and went, "That's different." All right, and away we go. So Mario and Les and Ian Roberts, over we go. Anyway, we catch a bus to the game, and I kid you not, the streets were completely crowded. The trees had people all in the trees, and they're all chanting and yelling. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't tell if they're happy or they're cranky. I'm not sure. So anyway, the bus pulled into the dressing sheds. The whole grandstand was completely covered with people, and they're chanting and they're stamping on the grounds. Anyway, we're in there getting changed, and I'm thinking, these guys are getting louder. And I said and I looked at Mario and I said, "Don't any of you blokes start a fight out here because they're in the trees. There's hundreds of people in the trees and everything. I said, they'll kill us. Anyway, it was a really good, solid game. We got them in the end, but they were a tough little side to play against. Yeah. And honestly, the game finished. Thousands of people come run onto the field, and they're trying to pick everyone up to carry them off. They loved us. They weren't cranky. They absolutely loved having the guys there, and that was something that I just thought, wow, you're just living in a different world sometimes. But that was just a funny experience that happened.
I love
Glad Murray on them didn't start a fight anyway.
They're the best. Mate, they treat rugby league players like gods. It's their world.
It was fantastic. It really was, but just a different environment to be in, you know. But as far as other footy stuff, there's been heaps of stuff, you know what I mean? Like you love the games where you've had your backs against the wall and you're gone and you come back and you win. You know, there's little moments like that you just go, you know, that's why you play. That's why you enjoy playing. And for me, it was never about the money. It was always about playing with your mates. And that the group at South was just such a tight-knit group. It just didn't matter. You always knew that left or right, there was someone there to back you up always, you know. So,
yeah.
And having a cheeky little halfback like Coleman, you had to be on your toes anyway because he'd be into you if you didn't do something right or you're missing tackles or you're doing something, he'd be into you. So, but that every team needs one of them. That's for sure.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Right, let's finish off with a few questions, just some fun ones. So, you came up with Manly, you played for South, and you finished at North. What NRL club do you support these days?
I'm a Rabbitoh.
You're a Rabbitoh through and through.
Yeah.
How good was that 2014 grand final, just by the way? That was unbelievable.
I kid you not, there's a photo somewhere in the house here. My whole family had their red and greens on, socks, jumpers, all my old jumpers. They're all sitting there watching it when they won. It was a good day.
Mate, I had tears in my eyes. It was seeing Sam Burgess with blood on his face and crying, and Russell Crowe, everything. I was just amazing. I love South Sydney. I think they're great.
He was dead set a special player. That's for sure, Sammy. He's hard as nails and a big guy.
Yeah,
good player.
He's fantastic. Yeah, man. Right. Okay. Non-league related. What's your favourite TV show or series of all time?
Series. Oh, you got me. We jumped through so many of them. Honestly, come back to that one.
Okay, all right. Okay, so while you're thinking about that, what if you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti? Out of a can or proper Italian spaghetti?
No, nicely made spaghetti. I love it.
Awesome, man. Right, so that just leaves us with your TV show. What do you got?
There's so many different ones that we've flicked on and watched some of it. What's that what's it called?
Yellowstone?
Yellowstone, we've watched some of that, which wasn't too bad. But the thing is, mate, by the time I work all day, by the time I watch some of that, I fall asleep halfway through them anyway. So,
what about the show from back in the day? Is there anything like, some pretty good old shows?
If you're going way back, the Get Smart, I used to watch that a bit.
Oh, yes. That was great. Yeah.
No, then I'm showing my age, see?
I watched that.
I'm 60 now, so anyway.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Nice to talk to you, Dave.
Thrilled to meet you, man, and just hear the gold stories. Love the South Sydney Rabbitohs, mate. They're a bit of a, one of those teams I don't necessarily say I support, but I kind of do.
Yeah. You always see a South jumper in any crowd. You'll always find a South jumper.
Man.
Nice to meet you anyway, mate.
Yeah, you too. And thanks everyone for watching out there, listening on Spotify. I've been your host, Dave. This has been the amazing Wayne Chisholm. We've been back in the day. We'll see you next time for kickoff.
Thanks, Dave.
Full time.